Hello, this is Fresh from eGaming Television, bringing you guys another Season 6 Patch 6.2 guide, and in this one, we are covering mid lane Lux. For more of our guides, you can go to www.egamingtv.com, or you can talk to us on Twitter at egaming_TV. So let's talk about what Lux is in League of Legends. Well, she is a high range, high poke damage champion. Since her ultimate is a 3,440 range, if she is roaming top and bottom, she can pick up many free kills with just her ultimate. She also has some relatively high damage, high range abilities as well in her kit that she can abuse the enemy mid laner with. She fits in a lot of different comps, however, she best fits in a pick or poke comp. In this guide, we're going to look at her pros and cons, her masteries, runes, summoners, each of her abilities, her ability leveling order, her item build, and some closing remarks on Lux as well. We're going to start by hopping right into her pros and cons, and the first pro being she's got high burst damage. And the best part about this burst damage is it's really easy to do as long as you can land your root. Very simply, when you land your root on a target, you simply drop your E underneath them, start your ultimate, pop your Q at the same time, and they take a massive amount of burst. Doing this will also proc both your Thunderlord's Decree that we take in our build and your passive. Since it is a quick 3 spells in succession, you are guaranteed to get a Thunderlord's Decree off as well. We're going to be looking at the passive a bit more in depth in a second, but it will also proc with the way it works. The next pro Lux has is that she's got a 3,340 ranged ultimate. If she walks partway up top river, she's able to hit the top laner from there. Same obviously goes for the bottom. This is great for her because she is not a very mobile champion, however she doesn't actually have to walk all the way down to the lane to give a bunch of help for their teammates anyways. This makes getting a Magi's on her relatively good as well if you are finding lots of opportunities to find ultimate kills. Lux's next pro is that she's got 2 spells that give her vision, and these are both her E and ultimate. One of the things that does suck about Lux is that she's very squishy, however, she is able to check all the bushes around her if she is using her E constantly, so this may not be a huge issue. Another thing that helps with her squishiness is that she's got a shield in her kit as well. This of course does scale with your AP, so it can give your teammates a nice little shield in team fights as well. It can also be great if you are maybe going to die from Ignite, you can just shield yourself and you will survive through it that way. Lux's 5th pro is that she's also got high poke damage, and this kind of goes with her high burst damage as well. Both her Q and E do have a range over 1,000, so if she is having trouble in lane, she can easily farm from a distance as well. These abilities also do a lot of damage, hence the high poke damage. Lux is also a fairly easy champion to learn, however, she is a little hard to master since she does have a lot of skill shots actually in her kit. For the most part though, she is relatively safe in lane as she can farm from a distance. As stated before, she's not a champion that has to worry about face checking bushes, she can easily just drop a spell in there and then know she's safe and move on. Lux's first con is that she's skill shot oriented. If you're unable to land your snare in the mid lane, the mid laner can simply either walk out of your ultimate or E zone or dash to the side. You also won't get the nice little passive chunk of damage as well that your passive does provide. Lux is one of those champions that if you cannot land your skill shots, you're going to be doing very little damage in the game. Once you do get comfortable with her kit, however, you will be doing large chunks of damage and will be able to easily carry the game. Lux's next con is that she has a lack of an escape in her kit. If she can react quick enough, however, she does have a snare in her kit, so as long as she can land that when a jungler is coming in for a gank, she can escape relatively easy. However, when people do get on top of Lux, she's going to have a very difficult time surviving that engagement. And this is part of the reason that we take either heal or barrier in our summoner spells. Lux's next con is that she's very mana hungry as well. We counteract this by getting some mana regen / AP items early on, so we are able to spam our spells more often. Of course, if we do have an unselfish jungler that's giving us blue, that is a very great thing for Lux, so we can spam those spells. Lux's last con, like I've kind of talked about before, is she is very squishy. Lux is typically a glass cannon mage. She has very high damage with a very high range as well, but short range, she can get her ass kicked. Knowing how to position can make or break Lux. If you're in the back line and you're landing your snares, it's going to be insanely hard to get to you and you're going to be dishing out a shitload of damage. When you're playing Lux, please know that you actually are playing Lux. Don't dive in like an Akali. That's not going to work out very well for you. For Lux's Masteries, we take 12 Ferocity and 18 Cunning, and we grab the Thunderlord's Decree Keystone. We start in Ferocity by getting Sorcery, so we get 2% increased ability damage. This just makes your last hitting and burst a little bit better. To get some sustain in the lane phase, we take both Feast and Vampirism. With Feast, we get 20 health whenever we kill a unit, which is on a 25-second cooldown, and Vampirism just gives us 2% lifesteal and Spell Vamp. We then get Oppressor, so we get 2.5% increased damage to targets with impaired movement. Lux gets both a root from her Q and a slow from her E, which makes this mastery a very good one on Lux. We then hop into the Cunning side by first getting Wanderer, so we get 3% movement speed out of combat. And this just helps us roam top and bottom lane a little bit faster so we can help in fights. We then move into Secret Stash, so our potions and elixirs last 10% longer and our health potions are replaced with biscuits. Since she doesn't have any sustain in her kit, these biscuits can make you stay in the lane just a little bit longer. We then move into Merciless, so we deal 5% increased damage to champions below 40% health. And then into Dangerous Games, so the champion kills and assists restore 5% of our missing health and mana. This is a great mastery because if we are in a 1v1 situation with, say, the mid laner who has Ignite, if we do finish him off first but we still have Ignite on us, we may be above the kill threshold of the Ignite. With that mastery and our shield, it can be enough to put us over the kill threshold. We then move into Precision, so we gain 3 plus 0.3 per level Magic Pen and Armor Pen, and this just helps us get through any of that magic resist. Finally is our Keystone Mastery, which is Thunderlord's Decree. This is our third attack or spell on an enemy champion, calls down a lightning strike, dealing magic damage in the area. The damage this does is 10 per level plus 30% of attack damage and 10% of ability power. This ability got a small nerf in the early game. It was always a 20-second cooldown, however now in the early game it is 25 seconds. This is based off of your level, however, and at max level it is only 15 seconds, so it is a bit better late game. They also made it so the stack decay period is now 3 seconds, and it was 5 seconds. This, however, isn't really an issue on Lux because her burst is so fast that it will definitely be off within the 3-second period. For Lux's runes, we take 9 greater marks of magic penetration, 9 greater glyphs of magic resist, 9 greater seals of scaling health, and 3 greater quintessences of ability power. These are by far the best runes you can take against an enemy AP mid laner. We get all of the tankiness from the magic resist and scaling health, and all of the damage from the magic penetration and ability power quints. If you were against an AD mid laner, you may want to change the scaling health into seals of armor. If you're kind of limited on how many runes you can buy, the scaling health is still pretty decent against an AD mid laner anyways. For our summoners, we take Flash and either Heal or Barrier. Teleport is also a viable option, especially if your top laner feels like he doesn't need to take it. We take Flash because it's used for chasing, escaping, repositioning, and much more. Lux is also a very squishy target, so Flash is very nice on her, since she can recreate a gap between herself and an enemy. Ignite isn't taken on Lux since she's usually at a far range from her opponent and can't actually get it on for a kill. If you are playing her properly, you should not actually be near champions that often. Heal is much better against champions with sustained damage, and it's also nice because you can save your teammates with it as well. Barrier, however, is better if you are against opponents with high burst, like Zed for example. As I was saying, if you are against a lot of champions with high mobility and you think your teammates are going to be ganked very often, you can take Teleport so you're able to get to those fights as well. Now we're going to look at each of her abilities, starting with her passive, which is called Illumination. Lux offensive abilities mark all affected enemies with light energy for 6 seconds. Her basic attacks and Final Spark, which is your ultimate, consume the mark, dealing between 18 and 154, based on level, plus 20% AP magic damage. It's nice because it does add a bunch of damage in your kill combo. As long as you have hit your enemy target with either your Q or E, your ultimate will consume the mark, meaning you don't actually have to auto-attack them for this to go off. Your combo is quite simply land a root, put your E under them, start your ultimate, and have both hit at the same time, doing a ton of damage. So now we're going to move on to that first part of your combo, which is your bind and is called Light Binding, and it is your Q. Lux releases a sphere of light in a line that deals magic damage to the first 2 enemies hit and roots them for 2 seconds. The magic damage is between 60 and 260 plus 70% AP. The range is 1,175, the speed is 1,200, the cost goes from 50 to 70 mana, and the cooldown goes from 15 to 11 seconds at max rank. The main thing to note about this ability is that it is the first 2 enemies hit. This means that if there is an enemy champion behind a minion, you can still fire this into the minion and it should root the person behind as long as they are in a line. Some people don't really think about this sometimes, they just kind of assume that it's like a blitzcrank, for instance, where you have to hit them directly. So these people, at least at lower elos, you can catch off guard with this ability. As long as this lands and your ultimate's off cooldown, it's time for some combo nuke. This ability is also great because if you are getting ganked by the jungler, if you can land this, you can simply do a 360 and walk the other way. And before somebody in the comments says, dude, a 360 is not going the other way, it's that, Xbox 360 joke for any of you that have been around for that. Anyways, we're going to move on to our W, which is our shield, and it's called Prismatic Barrier. So Lux throws out her wand in a line, shielding herself and allied champions in its path for 3 seconds. The shield strength is between 80 and 180, plus 35% AP. Lux's wand then returns to her, reapplying the shield to all allied champions it passes through and herself. This refreshes Prismatic Barrier's original shield and does not stack with it. The range is 1075, the speed is 1400, the cost is always 60 mana, and the cooldown goes from 14 to 10 seconds at max rank. There's not a whole lot to say about this ability, it's just a nice little shield that you can put on people in team fights. If you are in the back line, you can shoot it through your team and it will hit all of them, giving them a shield, and come back to you, giving you a shield as well. Like it says, it does pass through them twice, meaning it can actually be a relatively big shield if it does hit them twice. Since this isn't actually damage based and we are a nuke mage, we max this last. Before somebody in the comments says, dude, it says it doesn't stack. By being a relatively big shield, I just mean that it does pass through them once. If they take the damage, it will come back through them again, giving them another shield. So yeah, there. So now we arrive at Lucent Singularity, and it is her E. Lux sends an anomaly of twisted light to the target area, slowing nearby enemies and granting sight of the area around it for up to 5 seconds. The slow is between 20 and 36%. And at the end of the duration, or if Lucent Singularity is activated again, the Singularity detonates, dealing magic damage to all enemies in the area. The magic damage is between 60 and 240, plus 60% AP. The range that you can cast the ability is 1,100, and the little zone it has is 350. The speed is 1,300. The cost goes from 70 to 130 mana, and the cooldown is always 10 seconds. Now this is the ability we max first, and some of you may be wondering, why do we do that? The magic damage is less and the AP ratio is less than our Q. However, this is a lower cooldown, and it actually has a zone, meaning we can actually AoE farm and poke people that aren't actually in the center of it, meaning it is way better than the Q. So this ability is great because, like it says, it does reveal people in bushes. As I said, it's also pretty good for AoE farming. And after we land our root on a target, this is what we drop underneath them to do a large portion of damage. When comboed with our ultimate, this can usually be a kill on a squishy target. We now landed our ultimate, which is called Final Spark and is more potent than Ecstasy. After gathering energy for 0.5 seconds, Lux fires a giant laser in a line that deals magic damage to all enemies hit and briefly reveals them and the surrounding area. The magic damage is between 300 and 500 plus 75% AP. The range is 3,340, the cost is 100 mana, and the cooldown goes from 80 to 50 seconds. So not only does this have a high base damage, it's also got a decent AP ratio, and the cooldown isn't even that long. And, did you notice that the range is 3,340? That ain't too bad. So just land your snare, put your E under them, and then... oh yeah. So now it is our ability leveling order, and first is Final Spark, which is your ultimate. You take it whenever you can, meaning 6, 11, and 16. Next would be Lucent Singularity. We take it at level 1, and it is main in priority, so 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. We follow it up with Light Binding, which is our Q. We take it at level 2, and it is second in priority, so we take it at 2, 8, 10, 12, and 13. Lastly is our shield, which is called Prismatic Barrier. It is our W, and we take it at level 4, and it is last in priority. So we take it at 4, 14, 15, 17, and 18. Now we arrive at Lux's item build, and it starts with a Doran's Ring and 2 health potions. Our first core item is a Frost Queen's Claim. And yes, I'm very aware that this did get nerfed. It was a 60-second activation period, however, now it is 90 seconds. They also made it so the ghosts, when you do activate it, don't move faster towards targets you can already see. Despite both of these nerfs, it is still an incredible item. A few of the reasons are, 1, it is not that expensive of an item. It adds a bunch of nice AP and much needed mana regeneration on Lux as well. This can also actually add a ton of generated gold as you are able to poke enemies from a long distance, getting off a ton of the procs. Late game Lux can also kind of find yourself in a more support-oriented role that does add a ton of team damage in fights as well. Because of this, having a nice little activate so your teammates are able to chase down enemies is an amazing thing to offer your team. If you're a very selfish player in League of Legends, and there's not really anything wrong with that to be honest if you are looking to carry yourself to victories, then there are definitely better options than this for you. However, this does add a lot to teams. So moving on, we then get Boots of Swiftness because they are nice for roaming the map. We then move into either a Morello's or a Athene's. These are very interchangeable items. We are looking for some cooldown reduction in our build, and both of these are 20%, which is a very nice thing to have. If you're against a mid laner that can really bully you, then of course you're going to want the Athene's, assuming of course they're AP based, but if you need the Grievous Wounds, then you do take the Morello's. We then move into Rabadon's Death Cap so we can get as much AP as we can early on, so we are able to delete targets. To go with this, we get a Void Staff, so we're also able to get through any magic resist opponents may have. A great last item pickup in case people are getting on you is a Zhonya's. A well-timed Zhonya's can keep you in the fight and allow you to get off more spells to help your team. If you are snowballing and you're finding yourself able to get a lot of ultimate kills, a Magi's is a very good alternative. Get this early on so you're able to get it stacking and get 10% movement speed. Another great alternative in this build would be a Luden's Echo. It is nice because it has a lot of AP and a great passive on it, and it's also great for roaming as it does give you 10% movement speed. If you are against an AP heavy team, 2 alternatives as well would be an Abyssal or Athene's. Now that pretty much covers it for our mid-Lux guide. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you guys did enjoy the video. We will be having lots and lots more League of Legends content coming out in the near future. You can visit us at www.egamingtv.com if you do want to see a nice list of our guides. You can also find us on Twitter at egaming_TV if you do wish to talk to us. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the other guides.